Yo, what's up? This is Chuck D, and you're checking out Animal Status right here on Shade 45. Let's go.
Shade 45 is Animal Status. My name is DJ Wonder, and man, tonight is a special night. I have one of my heroes actually here in the studio with us. I gotta start the fire. I want to welcome to the Midnight Society, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Chuck D. How are you doing, sir? What's up?
DJ Wonder, man. 136 interviews and 90 days, man, and 40 days into the presidential election, man. So time is tight, man. But thanks a lot for having me on.
All right. Well, hopefully this one will be a little bit different. I know everybody asks you the same questions, but we'll try to switch it up a little bit for you, Chuck. We appreciate what you have to say, and thank you for your time as well. Um,
Everybody doesn't ask the same questions the same way, man. There's 50 countries involved with it, and sometimes, when you try to cut through a Scottish brogue asking you about, what's going on in Scotland and hip hop, it's you got to just be ready to handle it as it comes at you. So thanks a lot.
You got it. All right, let's talk about the new album first. Let's get that out of the way because I'm hearing it's a excellent album you put together. What you're gonna do when the grid goes down, and you're back on Def Jam Records. How does that feel?
Feels good. It was a good settlement between me and Flavor. I've been running independently since the '90s. It's been fruitful. Now you see everybody on the internet. We was the first. Now people stream like it's no thing. So we always paved the road into the future. But Flavor wanted to do something with a major. I said, well, with Public Enemy, we could do that, but Def Jam was the place that made sense for both of us, and here we are. And what you're going to do when the grid goes down is a statement and a question telling the person or whoever's out there, or be prepared, man, for the tricks that governments play. Remember, governments plural that play on people by not being aware, not being woke. Just stay ready and be ready, especially in the United States. You have to be ready because you're on the brink of something that says that you're on the side and some other side that says that they hate you. So I hate to break it down just into those two dynamics, but it's either or when it comes down to these 40 days.
All right. Speaking about labels, have you been following Kanye West's Twitter kind of crusade against the labels? And how do you feel about him wanting to give back his artists as masters? And how do you feel about contracts in general, since you were signed from the very beginning to now?
It sounds like me 20 years ago,
Right.
right before he came into Def Jam. It was like basically they were always one sided. Myself, if you look, all you got to do is look on your computer and look it up. Myself and Prince led the foray into technology of MP3s and stuff like that. So, I mean, why would that be anything new that Kanye's saying? We were saying that right before he got started. So it's about an even playing field, making it fair, making it open. Um, I like Kanye when he takes a stand in music, and I like his music. All the other stuff I don't get bothered with because those are his personal decisions, his personal things that are going on that is nobody else's business. I feel even if he tries to make it somebody else's business, it ain't nobody's business.
All right. Some of the features on the album: Beastie Boys, George Clinton, Ice T, PMD, Daddy O. These are all legendary hip hop artists. Was that a significant reason why you put
No,
these people on, or no?
yeah, like today, people think marketing. You with a major label, do features, and no, it's totally no. It fell together like that. We already had records in process, and the final two or three pieces to the record, for example, the Fight the Power 2020 was actually orchestrated by Questlove and the whole BET program with Nas and Rhapsody and Black Thought, YG, Jahi on it. That right there, was in itself a super feature. And then what you're going to do when the grid goes down? I asked my Uncle George Clinton, who people go to for the funk, but we went to him for the funkosophy
Hmm.
because he's always been a visionary and a futurist. And so we looked into the funk rock, the funkadelic, aspect where it was funk and psychedelic beginnings of George Clinton to give us some visionary thought on what was happening. And he blessed us with that. And along being with my Prophets of Rage rhyme partner, Be Real. It was a no-brainer to do for the first time. Public Enemy and Cypress Hill and George Clinton on Grid. But the joy in it was a collaboration turning 60 of actually asking Run, DMC, Mike D from the Beastie Boys, and Ad Rock for me paying homage to them because Public Enemy #1 is what they played, dragged around the world. And Rick Rubin came to ask me for 2 years to be involved with a new label that he started called Def Jam. And I finally conceded in 1986 to sign my contract with Def Jam, when he'd been asking me since 1984. So that it was off of that record. And that song was meant to be a WBAU radio promo. It was meant to be the most irritating, hardest record ever, running a tone through it. And I firmly have always believed in that type of irritant as music anyway. I never wanted to make something that you just felt comfortable with.
Hearing your voice is crazy to me, and it has been ever since I was a child. When I first heard your voice, it honestly was scary to me. Did you think about that when you decided to use your tone or inflection on your first record?
I wanted to be a sportscaster, but
Okay.
I come from the 70s and the 80s, man, where voices was judged. And I always made a whack microphone sound good. And my job as an MC, this is even before Flow, is that if you got on the mic and you had like a 10-cent voice, you wasn't gonna ever get the mic. And I got on the mic after I got off the mic, cats would look at the mic and start tapping it, and I would look at them and like, especially when I was young and full of piss and vinegar, I'm like, you're not going to get the mic to sound like it sounded like when I was on the mic. Especially if you got the mic from Radio Shack, I
Uh-huh.
try to make it sound like $1 billion. So that was the rules back then before people get into flows and all the studios equalized everybody out. But the voices come when it comes down on the stage, they got to stand out. And myself and Flavor Flav have always stood out with our voices. You can't unhear us. And so I've been blessed that at 60 that my voice has never wavered. It's been the only thing I could hang my hat on beyond the consciousness or the lyric or whatever, all that. I know that I'm a chip off the old block, and my father could yell over a mountain. He could yell from one town to the next. So, I happen to have that go for me. I wanted to be a sportscaster, and hip hop bit me. So I happen to use that yell in hip hop, and it's been helpful for 40 years.
Wow. Um, Thinking about the first time that you played a concert, and I know we're in a political time right now, and you've always been a political person in general, outside of hip hop and everything else. Um, what was it like, one, seeing a crowd of like white fans looking at you, and two, why do you think that white kids or just white people in general would sit there and take you talking about Elvis or somebody else and just sit back and take it, basically?
It wasn't that deep, Wonder. I mean, when our Public Enemy's first tour was with the Beastie Boys,
Yeah.
License to Ill. So that was the first tour that really went into white America from a rap standpoint. The white fans knew at that time that they was just visitors. Champion the Beastie Boys, who actually came out of Run DMC, but it was going to different points of the country. It wasn't going to Boston, it was going to Worcester. It wasn't going necessarily just to Syracuse, it was going to Albany and Rochester. I mean, places like that. So, it was going to Lehigh Valley instead of Philadelphia only. So that tour, License to Ill with the Beastie Boys, Murphy's Law, and we replaced Fishbone on that tour, automatically every crowd, had white fans there. So I wasn't asking questions of why were they there. It was like, okay, we are here.
Hmm.
And we are coming in through the doors, also doing rap music in a different type of way, introducing that. So I never had that thing of, ooh, I wonder why white kids are here, because you're in the United States of America. All you got to do is count the population if you're wise and aware enough and awake enough. And then you know that the reason that black music and hip hop and rap music is so strong, because in this country, although they try to keep people away and segregated, culture is still the thing that brought everybody together. And that curiosity in the 80s and the 70s, 60s, or whatever, had always brought people close to where the culture was spawned from. It just happened to be that black people, we spoke loudly through our culture because it was one of the few avenues open for us for expression beyond ourselves. Our community spoke through the culture because other doors were closed down. So for the last 70 to 80 to 90 years, going back to jazz and people like Bix Beiderbecke, mimicking, Louis Armstrong and building his game up. If you study history, it's always been there. Be in the culture, be true to the culture, let it reflect yourself, and people will come. And I knew that we was part of that in rap music and hip hop. I just happened to know our history or how this dynamic in this country was about.
The original Fight the Power 1989, Fight the Power 2020. It's a lot of the same problems are going on, but things have changed. 89, there weren't a lot of black artists on MTV, definitely not in commercials. Movies, it'd be a black movie, two or three a year, maybe something like that. But now, 2020, pretty much every commercial has people of color. Businesses just got off their month-long Black Lives Matter campaign. It's a different time, it seems to be, from the media standpoint. Who are you inspiring now, and who are you speaking to if everybody is speaking the same message as you through the media's eyes, it looks like?
Well, everybody's not speaking the same messages. Coincidentally, knowledge and information set you free. It's the third Fight the Power. The first Fight the Power was 1975 by the Osley Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
They would distribute on T-Neck Records and coming through Sony, which later on became Sony, but CBS. So they were widely distributed. It shouldn't have been no secret. And so we did Fight the Power #2 only 14 years later. It's been 30 years since that Fight the Power. So those are the actual facts. It's wonderful to see commercials and black color and people of color all in the outside framework, but also the mission is that behind the scenes that you have a lot of companies and a lot of color behind the scenes making the decisions. If you got 0.5% behind the scenes, but you brought the in front of the scenes up to 20% or 10 or 15%, that's the beginning of the struggle to equalize it. It's not the culmination and the result. So I think it has to keep on moving forward when it comes truth to power. No, not everybody is speaking the same language, and it's something that has to be constant elevation. You have to continue to push forward, continue to make changes. One of the biggest difference between this and 1990 Fear of a Black Planet is what?
I don't know. What
biggest difference is that people have been born and people have died. If things don't change, you got to work on systemic situations. People change though, because they come and go.
Who are you speaking to most, do you think, through your music? What is the one person, or what is the one mind state you're trying to get through?
The world. In Public Enemy, when I do these interviews, man, I'm talking to like 65 countries and I've been to 116. So if somebody has a situation happening in Auckland, New Zealand, or something that's happening in Nairobi in Kenya, I can't be the dumb United States of America that ain't trying to hear that because I'm not there. You have to be there, especially if you're an artist, your music and your point of view goes everywhere. This is one planet. This is not one country. So I never deal with the United States talking to the USA is only from a USA standpoint. I talk to them and say, really, the world has surpassed you. You got to catch up to the world, especially even in hip hop. Got to catch up to the world. United States is trailing on a lot of regards. If you follow ball, you even know in basketball, you see that a lot of the basics and other things, the USA is a little bit behind because they marveling at how, Luka Doncic is coming and changed the game at 20 and 21. Is because the world is evolved around culture and sports as a communicative language for change. And when you use these things to go forward, it makes it better. Where sometimes governments, and I say that plural, don't make it easy and don't make it better because they like to restrict people, categorize them, chop them up, move them to this side, list them, chart them. And hip hop has never really been about just that.
Man, one of the most important records, I guess, of me growing up was "Bring the Noise." When I don't know, because I was an MTV addict, like most kids, I guess, growing up, and seeing a hip hop group with a rock group was it wasn't new because Run DMC had done it with Aerosmith, but something about it seemed more raw, and the lyrics, and then you also had like Scotty Ian rapping, which you'd never seen him do before. So,
yeah.
How important do you think to your career that record was?
Well, not only was that important to our career, but Anthrax, Scotty Ian, Charlie, you know, the crew, Frank Bello, all instrumental in us looking at hip hop and seeing what we can do in our genre, bring the speed up, bring the muscle up, never show any tiredness on stage, go at the crowd like they going at you. We learned to intensify our stage performance and to get the most out of our songs and get the most out of making songs that would fit the stage better than something that was, just bouncy or dance floor. We didn't particularly make things for a dance floor. Some Public Enemy records, the only thing you could do is get a pickup truck and run it through a Dollar Tree window, man. So that's the emotion that we wanted to evoke. And that's not to take anything away from what everybody else doing, but when they come to the mega mixes, Public Enemy records never fit into the mega mixes. You only play Public Enemy songs with Public Enemy songs. And so we championed that. And we said, well, at the end of the day, we'll bring the ugliness out on stage. And we know what we are, but more importantly, we know what we are not. So Anthrax taught us, as they stood out in metal with thrash metal and speed and power, how to use power and speed with our music. And that song epitomized that. It came from me first name checking Anthrax because Scotty Ian would play the Donington Festival in '87 in front of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in the UK and was wearing our Public Enemy t-shirt. Mm-hmm. And from that, I name checked them and Bring the Noise. And from that, they wanted a couple years later to cover Bring the Noise, but also collab. And that's where that came from. It came from the strength of Scotty Ian, Charlie Benante, being able to say, let's take this further. So a lot of things I've been involved with in my career has not come off of my decision or not even people on my team's decision. It's come from the outside. So with Questlove and Jesse Collins from BET decided to do Fight the Power 2020, I had to go along with that energy, man. It'd be a fool to be like, nah, I think something else should speak to it. Although I felt that somebody else should speak to it. I felt some other song should speak to now and the energy of the young movement on authority this past spring and summer. But they said, this is it. So I'm not going to fight that. And that's what, the album was not born out of this thing of we got to do features so we could feel relevant. All this was already organically happened and it fell into look like that. And we're all the better for it. Public Enemy sets a path of making statements. Like the album is like, be prepared, be ready. What are you going to do when the grid goes down? Beware of government tricks and stay ready, stay woke, stay focused, because we're facing impending fascism. And if you don't know what fascism is or all those other ills, the isms, the racism, the sexism, and so on, then you will be ambushed by a chaotic system that's out of order where you're going to try to get answers where it's not going to be there. So what are you going to do when the grid goes down? Beware the tricks. Not wanting a grid to go down, not wanting a chaotic situation. I'm not doing records so they fit into a catastrophic scenario of an environment. No, I don't do that. I mean, I'd rather do my hip hop radio show on Rap Station and coordinate my label Spit Slam with my partner C-Doc, who actually put the album together and coordinated the album together. I'd rather do that. But the voice steps up in key times because I'm asked to speak up. And I do more listening than I do talking. But when time to speak, at my age, if I can't teach, then I shouldn't even open my mouth to speak. So it's time to say something and not hog the moment, which I definitely not into.
Let's talk about videos real quick. I talked about Bring the Noise, but also 911 is a joke. It was some of my earliest memories of seeing music videos that kind of like stuck out, the imagery. Also, Give It Up, the claymation. That was like jam of the week on MTV for week after week after week. Are music videos important to you personally or the group in general?
Well, today people listen with their eyes. and it's been going on for 30 years, man. You know, when I grew up, music was everything you heard. Then the 80s, it started to flip a little bit with what you had to see first and then hear.
Mm-hmm.
Today, music is four different standpoints, man. It's coming at you: sight, sound, story, style. That's just what it is. People receive music in all kinds of different ways. Another thing, wonder when somebody's a recording artist, is that such a big deal as it was 30 years ago? Before 30 years ago, you had to book yourself into a recording. You had to do something through somebody else to get recorded. But nowadays, everybody's recording every second,
right,
in their phones, through their computers. And so everybody's a recording human being. So recording artists, I'm not saying has diminished, it's just has expanded in so many different ways that you can't put one emphasis on anything. So visual is just part of that. People are recording every second. We're doing a visual. We didn't necessarily have to do this 20 years ago because people listen with their eyes. I think they listen a little bit too much with their eyes because you can pull a 3-chord Monty on them, and much of the United States had a 3-chord Monty played on them by this huckster, half-ass celebrity out of New York named Donald Trump, who somehow fooled half of the nation into thinking that this dude was who he was.
Well, a lot of that might have had to do with social media, and you talk about that in the album. What you're going to do when the grid goes down? That some people should get away and have a detox, and maybe get a notebook and a pad of paper and get their own thoughts off. What's your feeling on social media in general?
It's like a toy, and it's a tool. I try. See, I grew up, and it came alongside my growth that I was already grown. So I could look on to that and say, well, this is what I waited for all my life. Instead of running down to Federal Express and mailing somebody something and waiting to get it back, we could just do it electronically. But then I understood its asset as a tool. If you have grown up underneath its shadow, you grew up underneath it, you've seen it all your life, then you don't know its attributes beyond your extension of yourself, meaning it's been a toy to somebody. Because of course, when you're growing up into it, your first 15 years is not, life ain't nothing but toys.
Right.
So you're going to use it from a toy standpoint. Some of them can't get out of the toy standpoint. And that's where a lot of even the adults are right now. It's like, I got my phone and it's everything to me. So it's a toy and a tool. And sometimes it's more of a toy than it is a tool. So it's almost like when the first cars were made, Wonder. First cars was made to get from A to B, even on a muddy road, and you could put your horse to rest. Okay, they didn't figure. Henry Ford didn't figure out that some, you know, drunk teenager would be doing circle eights in the parking lot.
Right.
It's like, or somebody say, I'm gonna go get you and I'm gonna kill you, so I'm gonna use my car to run over your ass. I mean, that wasn't in the blueprint. So the same thing with phones and gadgets. What it was in the blueprints were it's as a tool, but the nonstop usage of it will make it go in a whole bunch of areas we didn't previously anticipate. So same thing with social media. Social media starts off as a tremendous asset for our expression and our connection. We can't talk about the areas where people can't use it as best as they could.
What's the future of Public Enemy? Is there going to be a continuing thing with Def Jam? Is this like a one-off thing, or what do you think?
It's a good visit.
Right.
You do it to the where the feeling takes you. Like I said, this was a great agreement and a settlement. Flavor wanted to do something major. I wanted to still do independent, but I wasn't opposed to doing something major if it was in the right place. And Def Jam happened to be the right place. It was a place that we put the electricity in the building. We were there since the beginning. Def Jam had asked me to record 33 years ago, and they asked me to record, 2 months ago. So here we are, right? It wasn't something I ever had to go to Def Jam and ask them for. So I had to respect that. And here we are. So Public Enemy has always made records around the world, vast catalog. The rest of the world has been kind of like frozen. But if we tour, 2022 is a good time to actually, roll around when everybody else rolls around.
We can't wait for that. Hopefully, a Public Enemy show coming to a city near you. Thank you so much. This has been Animal Status. I got to put the fire out, make sure everything is taken care of. So appreciate you, man. Shade 45.